Correction Officers in the News, December 21st, 2014.
New York. The first Rikers Island correction officer to be tried for civil rights abuses in more than a decade was found guilty on Wednesday by a jury for his role in the death of an inmate in 2012. Terrence Pendergrass could serve up to 10 years in federal prison for refusing to seek medical attention for Jason Escoveria, 25, a pretrial detainee who cried out for help after swallowing a highly toxic packet of detergent. Mr. Pendergrass was found guilty of one charge of violating the constitutional right of a prisoner to receive attention for serious medical needs. His lawyer, Samuel N. Braverman, said he would appeal the decision, which was handed down in federal district court in Manhattan. Two officers and a pharmacist all testified that they had told Mr. Pendergrass that Mr. Escoveria seemed very sick and that he was vomiting in his cell and complaining of extreme pain. The next morning, Mr. Escoveria was found dead in his cell.
Raymond Escoveria, Jason's father, said, "Today is a sad day. Nobody wins and nobody loses."
Mr. Braverman said he thought the verdict was not supported by the evidence. He also said that he thought the jury was trying to compensate for other systemic issues at Rikers, which he said should have no bearing on this case. He added that he thought protests claiming police abuse also influenced the jury. With all the news and in New York City, the thousands of people protesting on very important issues, it makes it a very tough time for a law enforcement officer to be on trial, he said. Pendergrass is set to be sentenced April 17th. Arizona. An inmate of the Pinal County Jail is accused of trying to slash the throat of a detention officer Monday. Christopher Durazo, 26 of Las Vegas, Nevada, is charged with aggravated assault on an officer. Monday, around 10:30 p.m., the Pinal County detention officer was collecting shaving razors in the day room of the jail. Durazo handed the officer the plastic handle of the razor with his left hand and used his right hand to slash the officer across the neck with the razor. It resulted in an 8-inch cut on the left side of the officer's neck. The officer called for backup. Durazo was taken to the ground and restrained. Despite being cut across the neck, the detention officer stayed calm and took control of the situation. The wounded officer was transported to a local hospital. His current status is unknown. Massachusetts. Our congratulations to officers Frank Crosby and Robert Noonan Jr. on receiving the American Correctional Officer Medal of Honor for their actions on July 14, 2014. While transporting back to the facility from court, both officers observed a landscaping truck and trailer veer off the highway and repeatedly roll over into the median strip. Officer Crosby activated his emergency lights in the high-speed lane, clearing a lane for first responders, and then called 911. While Crosby stayed with the prisoners, Officer Noonan ran to the crash site and observed an unconscious operator who was trapped in the vehicle because the roof had collapsed. Suddenly, the vehicle caught fire in the passenger compartment. Officer Noonan, using a fire extinguisher, was able to keep the fire from burning the badly injured trapped operator. Officer Noonan took control of the scene, keeping the civilians at a safe distance due to the fire and risk of explosion, without regard for his own personal safety. Both Officer Noonan and Officer Crosby received the American Correctional Officer Life-Saving Award at the organization's conference last month in Nashville, Tennessee, along with medals of honor for their efforts in the incident. Washington, D.C. It's been 6 years since Robert L. Smith retired from his job as a corrections officer at the D.C. jail, but he says he still receives threats from former inmates he supervised. He keeps a legally registered handgun inside his Southwest D.C. home, but he would like to be able to carry it to protect himself. As a former jail employee, he said, he should qualify for a permit under the federal statutes that allow retired law enforcement officers to carry guns without obtaining state licenses. But the D.C. Department of Correction doesn't see it that way, and the agency has declined to provide the required approvals for his request. So Mr. Smith and 3 other retired employees have sued the district over the issue, wading into a debate playing out across the country over whether the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act should be interpreted to allow those who staff the country's jails and prisons to carry guns outside of work. In spite of their years of service that would qualify them to have a firearms permit under the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act, the District of Columbia is improperly asserting that these individuals never qualified as law enforcement officers with arrest authority. California. A bill to name the U.S. Post Office building at 801 West Ocean Avenue in Lompoc after a federal correctional officer killed in the line of duty passed the U.S. House of Representatives on December 8th. Corrections Officer Scott J. Williams was working in the line of duty at the federal prison in Lompoc on April 3, 1997, when an inmate stabbed him to death. The bill, authored by U.S. Representative Lois Capps of Santa Barbara, received unanimous bipartisan support. The bill was referred to the U.S. Senate, which passed the bill on December 15. Capps is pushing to get the bill signed into law before the end of the year. This installment of Correction Officers in the News has been brought to you by Correction Officers Guide to Understanding Inmates, the 44 Keys to Power, Control, and Respect, available at Amazon.com.